True. Also, Mike is a fellow fiend, so I'm just saying. Let's go. True, dude. Yeah, I'm ready whenever you are.
Let's kick this shit off. APT, back in season, doing it weekly, doing it live.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We gotta fix it live too, because it's real whack right now.
Oh, you're live on Twitch right now too. I'll link that one as well.
All my stream.
Oh yeah, I see your camera's all messed up.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. That's okay. We fix.
I'll have my eyes on it, see if it's better. Oh, it's improving. It's happening.
Alright, now we got my screen capture on so we can screen capture things.
There we go. You want me to turn on my cam, dude? I've been good.
Stream like we haven't been hanging out for like most of the day.
Right, I was gonna say. I've been good. Just same old, working, living life, working on lots of personal goals. Things are going well right now. How about you, buddy?
Pretty much the same. Work's been like just straight wild for a minute.
Yeah, I feel you.
That's been a challenge for me. I
True,
think you've
but
had
hey.
similar challenges with work taking a lot of your attention and stuff.
Oh, big time, dude. It's been like non-stop crazy all the time, but hey, it's all worth it in the end because we have time for some more APT.
Exactly. That's what it's really all about. So we talked about a few things we're going to talk about tonight. What do you want to start with?
You know, I think if we're gonna start with anything, we should probably start with the ones that we're gonna disagree on the most.
True.
Just to really get things kicked off. I think Psychology of Humor and Suffering is a great way to start this one off because it seemed like that one we vehemently disagreed on. At least from our brief conversation about it.
Do you wanna tell the audience what started this? It's pretty funny.
Well, so we both, I don't remember if it was you who saw it first or if I saw it first. I think you had linked me a video that I had already seen by Destiny, where he had like saw this clip of this lady who had called 911 on her husband to like threaten him, and like they arrested her, you know, and like she was, I don't think you would even disagree with this. She was clearly acting very manically, not really in like a good headspace. She wasn't responding in such a way that the police were going to be like gentle about the way they were going about the situation, right?
She was beyond unreasonable.
Yeah, and it was a very aggressive situation, and essentially in this video, Destiny is just laughing, and like kind of making fun of the situation, and
definitely making fun of her. Like,
right.
I would say, is it fair to say that his dialogue implied she deserved the outcome?
Yes, and I think like it's a little bit hard to parse it out, right? Because it's not like an incredibly long clip, and it doesn't really seem like it's not like his dialogue or commentary on the video is like particularly well thought out. Like, it doesn't seem like he's trying to make any arguments. It seems like he's kind of like
He's just like
surface
watching a
level.
clip somebody told him to
Right.
watch.
Right, exactly. And so like it's kind of hard to parse it out, but I think you were making the argument that in conjunction with other things that he's done, this video is just another example of this kind of behavior, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I do tend to think that he kind of takes a hard, you know, like, if something goes bad, it's your fault kind of, like, stance. Very discompassionately towards certain people. I think this especially comes up when we're talking about how he looks at videos regarding police and guns and, like, his take on Rittenhouse.
That's something we should talk about today, is his take on Rittenhouse, because you and I might disagree about that too. We'll see. But I guess, like, the core of the disagreement that we had in regards to this is that I didn't really see what he was doing as, like, categorically different than, like, making a racist joke, or, like, even just making fun of somebody in a way that isn't really harmful to discourse, I guess. Like, that's kind of the way that I viewed the situation. And you took issue with that specifically. You took issue with that stance.
Oh, I mean, yeah, just hearing it even repeated again, like, his entire attitude towards the situation is the harmful discourse. So I'm trying to figure out how to parse that out with what you just said.
Would it be good to, like, actually open the clip?
Yeah, we can probably do that.
That might be a good idea, because that would, like, I think there's, like, some specific things he says and does and some specific moments that are probably, like, key components here, I guess, at this point. Let me see if I can find the clip.
I can find the clip.
Okay, perfect.
I've got to set up my streamer deal here to capture the window correctly.
Oh, good. But yeah, I guess just, like, my general take on the matter is that in that particular situation, here's the thing, right? I think it would be a problem if the police acted inappropriately in that situation. And I think that might be the core of our disagreement in this particular instance.
Micah made a new account to follow me. I think it actually, we might be fine with screen capture here because it'll capture my audio. This should work. Somebody will have to let me know on stream if the video doesn't play correctly.
I have your stream open, so I can tell you.
Now we get to see my YouTube history live on stream. It's been a whole lot of this, whole lot of guitars and basses and great guitar and bass players.
We do love Polyphia and Charles Berthoud here at APT.
Where was it? It's at the end of one of his videos.
It's the one where Ben Shapiro reviews his debate.
It is that one, right? Okay. Yep. All right.
Destiny didn't actually. No, 911.
Yeah, the clip is playing properly on your channel here.
Okay.
There's not really a way for me to watch it in real time with you.
Yeah, there is. I'll do it like this. And Discord.
Oh, just stream it on Discord. Perfect.
Oh!
Police department, open the door! Police department, open the door!
We get it, bro.
Hello?
Hello?
This is Officer Cloud from Marshall Police Department calling you.
He's already starting off the commentary
What's
with the
going on?
hold
Well, we got a call from this number stating, okay, well, what apartment are you guys in? Well, we're trying to, we just want to make sure everything's okay, all right? So we just got to check on everyone. Okay. Well, how would you know we're knocking on the door?
We're not leaving, come to the door!
Oh, wait, what did she say?
We're trying to, we just want to make sure
here,
everything's
pause the
okay.
video because
all right?
here's a comment for me to make. Generally speaking, when you call 911, you need to, like, if they're at the door and you're not opening the door, that's already problem numero uno. If you call 911 and they're knocking on the door, she should have just opened the door.
Yeah, okay, sure. She made a mistake.
Well, and
Cops are scary.
when
They
you're
just
in-
showed up. Maybe she didn't realize they were going to show up with so many people and armed and everything. Like, this is my issue. Is it's understandable that people sometimes don't know the best thing to do when suddenly presented with the full force of the state. And I don't think him laughing here is a problem. Like, I get it. Like, obviously they've seen through it. Like, he's laughing at this situation where they've clearly seen through this, right? So this isn't at all
sure.
the part that I have a problem with.
Sure. Well, and I guess just like I just want to make like the expectation here clear, at least in my eyes, that like when you're a police officer and you get like a domestic call, like I have friends who are police officers, and generally speaking, the protocol is like you're approaching a potentially violent situation, and so they're taking it pretty seriously. And so
Right.
I guess like that's just really the framework that I wanted to set there. But yeah, that's all I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
We press on.
Yes.
And so we just got to check on everyone. Okay. Well, how would you know we're knocking on the door?
We're not leaving, come to the door!
Expert detectives, America's finest.
Okay, what's going on?
I have to. Nothing.
Okay.
Nothing. I have to go to work. I don't even know why you guys are here. Get away from me, please. You're making me feel. I want the chief of police here.
Okay.
Whoever the supervisor.
Ryan snapped me back and asked if I can debate you on Skyrim's combat being bad.
That is not an option. That is not an option today.
All right.
That's not part of the APT lineup today, Ryan. I do apologize.
Prisoners I want here.
Okay, he's coming.
Okay, I have to go to work. I don't have time for this, sir. I have to go to work.
So you called it.
No, I didn't. I don't know who called you.
Okay,
I did
what's
call
your,
you.
What's your phone number? Start with that.
603-85. I'm from New Hampshire. Well, I'm from Massachusetts originally.
Okay, so who's in the apartment with you?
Me?
Okay, who else?
Me?
Because there's someone else.
I have to get ready, sir.
Okay.
I have to go to work.
We got her?
I have to go to work.
If you pause it again real quick. And like just to be clear again, and this is like I think this is an important point to illustrate, Alex, is like this is like she's lying to the police officer, she's acting very defensively and not very like I get your point that like it's hard to know how you would act.
At what point does someone doing the wrong thing to police justify making fun of them?
Oh, like because it's kind of an absurd situation right now, wouldn't you agree?
No, it's
Like-
wildly more common than people realize.
Well, sure, but like it's seeing it visually, like I don't think the starting of this laughing at this is like unacceptable behavior. Do you feel like that?
No, but like here's where everything goes bad for me. Let me skip ahead a bit.
Sure. Yeah.
Not juvenile, infantile. It's infantile. Oh my god, it's actually
This
probably
right
one of
here.
my.
This right
This
here.
is my job. Please let me go to work.
and help.
There's no one inside. Please let me go home. Please, I have to go to work.
Okay. Trigger from my past more insane relationships. Nothing triggers me more than women that think they can cry and scream and get their way. It's actually the most infantile, juvenile thing. Not juvenile, infantile. It's infantile. Oh my god, it's actually probably one of my #1 triggers. Holy shit.
I have massive problems with that comment.
I'll let you say your piece on that first.
I want to come back to it because I want to show what happens next. But I have massive
sure.
problems with that comment.
Sure. Continue.
I have to go to work, sir! Oh my god!
Oh!
Wait, get over here. Get the away from her. Get on the ground. Get on the ground.
Okay.
My baby's in there!
So, the narrative that some right-wingers are trying to say to justify police force here is that he came out with his fists up. But the delay between when his fists are up and when they decide to tase him, like, he's not making a move, like, he realizes the situation, then immediately stops. He's not, like, immediately trying to pose a threat. And they don't even give him a chance?
He's yelling all the way up to the point where they tase him, though. Do you hear that?
Oh!
Like, listen to his voice specifically.
Get the away from her. Get on the ground.
He's putting his hands up. He's saying, put him away, get her. Like, he's literally saying, can you just get away from her? Like, come on.
Okay, no. That is totally like, that is not not accurate framing. Sorry, I messed up my word, jumbled my words there. That is not accurate framing. That guy, first of all, I wouldn't say his hands were up. Like,
Watch
obviously
it again.
he seemed like
Watch it right here. Watch what happens. He comes out. He kind of like gets a defensive posture, right? And then he opens up his fists right here, right there. He opens up his palms, right? Because all of a sudden he realizes, bunch of dudes, lots of force, and he's just standing there. He's not charging anybody. He's not making any kind of move. In every other country, he's not getting tased. And only in America, where we are so fucking happy to exercise the maximum amount of force on our citizenry, does a person get tased in this situation.
well, do you think they're happy to to be in a position where they think this is necessary? Like, do you
No, I
think
don't
they're
they're
doing this
happy. I
because
think
they
they're
want
wrong. I think they're always way too scared because they watch a bunch of poisonous bullshit videos where they have a very skewed, like, the average cop has an incredibly skewed view of how dangerous his job is day to day.
to? Can you repeat that?
The average police officer has a wildly skewed view in terms of how dangerous their job is on a day-to-day basis. They're overly paranoid.
Maybe, but would you not agree with the statement that the United States in general has a violent culture?
Yes, but he has literally no weapons on him. He's not making any violent acts. They
They can't
aggressors
see
in
right
this
around the
situation.
corner. There's people who keep shotguns right next to their door.
Okay.
That's not. I don't think that's something you can readily distinguish as somebody from their perspective in this position. I think looking at it a second time, you can see that he puts his hands up after seeing all of the force and stuff, and yeah, maybe tasing him probably isn't necessary, but there's probably still a fear factor there for the guys who are approaching the situation.
All right, so from this point forward, this woman is in a very dramatic situation.
Sure, absolutely.
The person who's probably part of the primary support for her and her family is now being violently tased by police. She knows her
Yes.
day, at a bare minimum, has just gotten very fucking terrible. Okay?
Sure.
So, also, she can anticipate it going badly because she probably already recognizes that she's lied, and now she's trying to re-lie or over-lie to double up on her problem, and she's panicking because the situation's getting out of control. And Destiny makes fun of that as a crazed woman infantilizingly screaming to get her way. That is ridiculous. To characterize someone's mental state this way is so disingenuous, it's cruel.
Continue the clip a little bit, because I do forget a little
Number
bit
one
how he
triggers.
responds
Holy
afterwards.
shit.
Okay.
Because here's the point. Wait, pause the video right here just real quick. So at this point in time, obviously he's made a pretty, a statement that I probably wouldn't even agree with. I think this is wrong. at least in terms of like characterizing somebody's actions, especially in the framing of her being a woman, like as if that's like the thing that he's attributing the behavior to. I don't think that's acceptable. But like the situation's clearly absurd, I would say. Like it doesn't. I myself might laugh at this a little or chuckle a little bit just because of the absurdity of the situation. But I do agree that his...
my issue isn't the laughter. My issue is that he has no empathy for the woman who is in this situation, and that's clear. Like, this is not... Like, no matter what you think about this woman, she does not deserve the fate that befalls her on this day. Like, imagine having a really bad day. Clearly there's some kind of domestic situation. She was already the victim. Like, we know she was the victim. There's a lot of evidence to suggest she was probably the victim of some domestic abuse. Right? The whole reason why she called the cops was... And so then, in the end, she ends up being the one who gets arrested? And the abuser's being left with the kids?
I don't... I think I disagree with that framing. I don't think it's concretely... I don't know if you can concretely say from this clip alone that it's as clear cut as him being the abuser. And
okay, so now so let's open up the frame even larger. Why are these two in this situation?
I mean, it's hard to say, but clearly they're having a disagreement that is causing things to get heated.
I think one thing's probably fairly certain.
It's a situation that's clearly gotten out of hand in such a way that, like, that the fact that 911's even being called into question, yeah, I think that makes it pretty obvious that the situation's not good.
Right. So, and why do domestics happen in general?
Why do... I don't think that's a clear-cut answer to that. It could be a variety of things.
Well, I can definitely tell you the number one reason why America is, like, leading the world in domestic violence.
Sure, hit me with it.
It's number one. It's our cultural imposition on people to stay in relationships, even when everything gets bad, right? Our lack of social supports, economic especially, when someone needs to get out of a toxic or abusive relationship, and so all the incentives, especially when it comes to women, are for them to stay in incredibly dangerous and almost impossible situations to deal with every day. I know someone that I have known, like, since high school that has been in this level of kind of chaos, and they're also living in kind of that black market outside government lines kind of lifestyle, which you could assume everything that comes with that, right? Drugs and crime sometimes to get by, right?
Sure.
And there's no way out. And so then, for that person who's used to living that lifestyle to be so panicked and so afraid to then turn around and want to call the police, they're not having a good time. And they're in that position because there are like a million reasons. The war on drugs is part of it. Our systemic, extracting resources away from, more and more poor people, right? Like, this is clearly a poor couple in a bad spot on a bad day, and on her worst day, her life is getting completely destroyed, and Destiny is like, good, she should go to jail. That's not the right attitude here. A tragedy has occurred. Maybe it's a little funny in terms of some of the optics or some of that, but the overwhelming story here is this sucks, and we want to create a society where a lot less of this happens. And
well, sure, and I would agree with that.
His whole narrative is also, like, always, and from a pro-police standpoint, I can't stress enough how badly she needed a social worker or a psychiatrist this day.
Oh, absolutely, and like I'm not gonna argue against you that like the construct of our society like allowed for this to happen, and that's ultimately like something that needs to change. But surely 911 is something that everybody should know what is coming to your door when you call that number. I feel like there isn't.
Yeah, but why is that so negative? It should, like, the fucking thing that's written on their goddamn cars is to serve and protect. And instead it's, imprison and scare the hell out of and use violent acts to get people to comply with, like, forceful acts. 99% of the time, that's your interaction with police. We need help in other ways.
Just out of curiosity, though, because, like, I guess, because I'm not going to say I disagree with you, but in the instance where this happened, like, obviously, that's the way things are in this clip. Like, that's, when you call 911, that's the way things are. Like, the cops are going to show up to your door, and they think that a potentially violent situation's going on. Like, they're trained... They're trained this way. I guess that's my point, is that, like, I think we should have a little bit of empathy for cops in the system as well, in terms of, like, I don't think they like it any more than we do.
No, I do. I do have empathy for them. Hold on. But what does that have to do with Destiny making the conscious effort, conscious choice, to watch this video live on stream, not miss wide left an opportunity to talk about how badly we need criminal justice reform, how badly we need an update to our response to domestic situations like this one. And rather than talk about all of that, what does he think it's important to do on this day? To disparage and make fun of a woman who deserves compassion.
Would you...
He's farming stuff like this for content maliciously, dude. Like, that's my point.
I don't... it's hard, like, I think the statement he made while she was on the stairs screaming, I think that kind of frames it for me in, like, a pretty negative light. But I don't think... Like, I think you could probably argue the ethics of some of the arguments he's making in this situation, but I don't think, like, finding the situation somewhat humorous is unethical.
I have a bigger problem with him choosing to cover it at all. I don't like exaggeration of police force, right? But I'm never going to, on my show, play a bunch of clips of cops getting, like, you know, their shit handed to them, and then be like, haha, win one for the good guys. And that's the valence this comes off with.
Like a vice versa, you mean like a vice versa situation?
Yes, I would never be tempted. Like, let's say there was a clip out there where people, like, got the better of police in a particular situation where I thought the cops were using excessive force, but then it turned bad on the cops, right? I would not be tempted to show that video because I don't think those situations should be happening at all. And I'm going to choose to use my platform to take the opportunity to try and educate and discuss why we need to be better at these things and not use them for cheap humor opportunities or getting some kind of, like, so it's not the laughing. It's like he almost gets pleasure from watching videos of a level of force being used on someone. Like, what else, like, is there any argument that you could possibly make to me that Destiny's not getting pleasure out of watching somebody else's massive amount of very bad day?
Is there an argument I can make to you that Destiny is not getting pleasure out of the situation?
Yeah, he's clearly taking pleasure from this.
You know, like, give me a sec to think about this. I guess the way I see it, like, I think I probably agree. After, like, I kind of forgot about the statement he made about the lady on the stairs, like, at that moment, and I think that's probably the most unacceptable thing he said during this entire clip.
Yeah, but what about just choosing to do it in the first place?
I don't, like, it's not like, I'm not sure if he, like, curates these videos that he watches or if they're, like, sent to him. First and foremost, I guess.
Well, they're sent in, but, like, okay, even then, I would have figured out 3 minutes into the video, I would have had a very different attitude and I would have been like, why am I watching this? This is super sad. I feel very bad for this woman. Right? Like, that would have been my reaction. Because my whole point is I worry that Destiny is a little sociopathic in terms of his ability to not sufficiently care about the misfortunes of others.
Maybe, but that bear with me on this one. This is like I guess this is like the last bastion of resistance, I suppose, for this point. Is it not in and of itself an empathetic position to not be capable of empathy, I guess? Because I guess as well, like, first of all, I don't think he's choosing to like feel this way about the situation. I don't think like it's an active malicious thought in his head, like, oh, I can twist the narrative so that like I can make cops look good and make this lady look bad. I think that's genuinely how he feels, and I think it's because you could, like, from a conventional standpoint, this woman is not acting in accordance to how you should when law enforcement shows up to your house. She is not acting at all as you should be in a situation like this, at least to
Obviously.
right. And so I think conventionally speaking, there's a lot of people who would probably share the same perspective as Destiny here, because ultimately they're committing a crime by calling 911 and then like basically fucking off on the situation. That in and of itself is a crime.
All right, here's the thing we can talk about. What is
Sure.
crime in the United States?
Crime is an infringement on the legal systems we have put in place that are based off of like moral conclusions that we have come to as a majority of society, or at least that's what they're supposed to be.
Like crime, like theft?
Right. Like stealing from somebody is something that we as a society, majority, have agreed is wrong, and therefore we should outlaw theft. You shouldn't be able to take other people's possessions, what we deem as possessions. And when you do that, there should be penalties for doing so. That's like the idea of it.
Do you realize like the vast majority of the reason why theft laws exist are to uphold ownership of property?
Right, and I'm not saying that I agree with let me be clear. Like I don't like that framing. Like the way that you're saying that, because you're assuming my beliefs off of that.
I'm not. What I'm saying is
then the answer to your question is yes, I do realize that. Yes, of course I do.
Okay.
I know what like theft is, but the point is that the reason why it's outlawed is because we agree as a society that it's wrong. Or at least majority agree.
Yeah,
there's a reason why laws can change.
Except where we definitely disagree as a society is where the real theft has occurred. Because the actual theft is happening. The actual theft has been the theft of our labor.
This feels like a non sequitur.
No, the law was used for 100 years to uphold property ownership. And for 100 years in our country, that included people. So that you could get as much labor out of them as you wanted to, right? The vast majority of law has to do with upholding tenets of capitalism.
Which would you not?
There are things that people do that shouldn't be anything that has to do with law that lands you in jail.
Just out of curiosity, do you think capitalism wasn't born out of some sort of moral belief? Like any moral belief?
I know I'm very confident that it was not. It had nothing to do with morals.
Like nothing. Like absolutely nothing. Like what about people who like feel good about stuff and don't want stuff taken, therefore people shouldn't be able to take my stuff? Like I'm sure you probably have possessions that like if people stole, that would cause you negative feelings. You probably wouldn't like it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so like
not land,
you don't
though.
think you don't think that people feel the same way about like the land? You don't think people like what if somebody just like came up and just torched somebody's farm? Do you think they would like feel good about that? Do you think they'd like that?
No, but they're wrong to think it's their land. That's my point. Like, they're wrong about whether or not they own it.
Sure, but do you not like? But they think that it's theirs, right?
Yeah.
And so like, if they think that it's theirs, and like that's like a thought, like that's like something they've solidified in their brain, and they don't like it how it feels when somebody like infringes on that.
Yes, I used to rationalize all of these things when I was a pro-capitalist, right? So, like, I know how someone can come to think these things, obviously.
Sure, but like I think it's still
doing this intentionally or maliciously. I never said that.
Well, no. But I'm saying that it fits into the framework that I provided, like of what a crime is. I think theft fits into the same framework. It's because we think theft is wrong. It's not to uphold property. Well, like the reason why it is to uphold property ownership is because we think it's wrong to infringe on that. That's the reason why it exists.
Okay. Yes, but the whole reason why I brought that up is because what we define as crime in the United States, or let's say this, obviously I can think of an example where you'd be stealing from me and it would be wrong, but what we extend that to in the United States is outrageous.
I don't disagree with you, but like that's like yeah, I don't disagree with you.
Okay, so here's another example. My issue with covering clips like this, like he's doing, is it's wildly unthoughtful about how the entire framework of how our legal system operates in a way to screw individuals and support people with the most power. And then the people with the most power use the police like their personal protectors. Like,
right.
That's how a society's upheld.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with that
So
statement.
you can't,
and
so for Destiny to claim nominally sometimes that he's on the left, right? But doesn't question systems of power like this, and like is happy to watch power be completely abused. That bothers me.
yeah, and you know, to be honest, like when the more thinking I've done on this topic, I feel like I'm stuttering a lot. The more thinking I've done on this topic, and the more that I've been watching Destiny, to be honest, like I'm starting to find myself in a lot of those disagreements with his like politics as well. Like I think most of his economic takes are pretty poor. Like generally speaking, I mean, you know, like I'm not for capitalism. I think capitalism is generally speaking a bad way to operate society without like some sort of other constraints, right? Like there has to be some rules to make the game fair if we're going to play the game, right? And
Yeah.
I don't think Destiny, generally speaking, agrees with those rules. Like, in fact, I think I've watched him cover Andrew Yang before, and I'm pretty sure he disagrees with a lot of those like points as well. You know what I mean? And so, like, yeah, I agree. And to be honest, after watching the clip again, I don't think he reacted appropriately in terms of some of his comments here. But like, I think in terms of the ethics of finding the situation to be humorous, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with finding it humorous in terms of like it being just absurd.
There's a difference between finding humor in it and like laughing at the fact that the powerful got to exercise their power. Like, my issue is the target of the humor, right? I could laugh at myself if I acted that crazy on a given day. You know?
Right. Well, and you could even argue that like the response the cops had to it was kind of like, it's like, yeah, this lady's acting kind of crazy. Like, I don't know. Like, it's just an absurd situation all around. And like, I guess that would be my question then. Like, I think we can both agree at like on this point.
The humor is less of the problem. It's the fact that I think that for him, the target of the humor is like, haha, bitch got what she deserved. And that changes the target for me.
Yeah,
That's
and
very
I
different
think
than, haha, oh my god, this lady is like clearly acting nuts. You know, like that's a different kind of humor than when he's like sort of taking pleasure in her quote unquote getting what he thinks she deserved.
Right. Yeah, and yeah, I agree with that point now. But like, I guess then, like, do we have any more disagreement there? Because I think it seemed like we might have had a disagreement on the ethics of finding the situation humorous, like
I think
in any
we
capacity.
didn't talk about it enough at that point. Like I would have got to that. It's more about why he found it humorous.
Sure. Okay.
Because
I
it's
think
laughable that anybody could pity this woman, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like
And
I mean, you can watch that clip and it's unquestionable.
Yeah, like he would find that like ridiculous that anybody else would like feel compassion or empathy or pity for her. Like, and like that's problematic because clearly like this woman just wants to live her life and feel safe. And like it's pretty bad when you're stuck in an abusive relationship because of capitalism and then you can't even rely on good policing. Somehow they end up tasing the abuser, then letting him stay and arresting you while he's there with the kid. Like it's just fucked up.
Well, let's pause on that though. Like I said, we don't necessarily know like who the abuser was.
Oh, you could hear him on her original 911 call. Maybe you didn't have that context?
Maybe I missed that. Sure, play that.
Yeah,
again.
yeah, like you could clearly hear him screaming at her in the background in the original 911 call.
Wait, is the original 911 call in the clip?
I think in the very beginning?
I don't think Destiny plays it in this video. I think it might be in like the original like actual video.
But yeah, like what happened is that's clearly the case. Like I get a kick out of the fact that she's like, I've got to go to work, and she's just like chilling in her tank top. Like, where do you work?
Right, dude.
That's funny.
She's about to go work at like Bed Bath and Beyond or something, dude.
Yeah, and then like the other part, like, so this is where they like put her in the car, and she's like, the one part that I found a little bit funny is that she immediately like started going, I want to kill myself. Take me to the hospital. I want to kill myself. Like that, I found funny. Because
I'll be careful too, because I don't know if Twitch or YouTube bans that stuff, but
well, it's just like I mean, he played it on Twitch live on there. It's in the video. It was funny because like we all kind of know that that's something like the cops have to respect if you exhibit thoughts of like self-harm, right?
right. It was like that's what I mean by like the absurdity of it, right? Like it felt like we were going through like
She
like
was trying to do anything to make this situation go away, and it's not going away.
yeah.
And
Right,
that
exactly.
part's funny in the sense of, man, you tried everything. But, like, it's not... It also super sucks that there is nothing that she could do, probably, at that point, to de-escalate the situation and have a reasonable conversation and actually get help from authorities rather than force.
Right.
And that's
Well,
a big problem.
Wait. Like, repeat that. Did you say that there's nothing she could do in that situation to like to cause
Yes.
the police?
Help from authorities as opposed to force. So let me give you one example. Let me give you one example. How much you want to bet, right? Like, let's just play a little bit of speculative reasoning here, okay?
Okay.
How much you want to bet there's drugs in that apartment?
Oh, I wouldn't want to take that bet.
Like, you know that's clearly the case, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so now that it's real and the cops are there, how often, because of bad drug laws, are the cops going to just decide to handle the situation that way and be like, well, you called us, but now we see these drugs here, so you're getting arrested today? Because the incentive is for them to inflict the maximum amount of pain and suffering on the average individual for things that aren't real crimes. And so that's why it feels like when you're somebody who kind of lives in that lower rung of, you know, avoiding the law kind of lifestyle, you don't feel like you can ever actually get help from them when you're actually in danger.
Oh, sure. I mean, like, I would probably agree with that sentiment. Although, like, in this clip, I don't think it's apparent that that's the reason why they're using excessive force. Maybe the
No, I
reason why
think,
they
but I
brought
think
that
that's
many
why
people.
she went from calling the cops looking for help to panicking that they're actually really there now, and now trying to like get out of them doing anything.
Oh, right, because, like, she's like, oh, they'll come inside, they'll find the drugs. Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yes, and like that's the part that like you have to understand the situation that people are facing. Like ultimately, if the police get involved, like that's what somebody's scared of in that moment. They're right to be scared of it, and it could be a majorly negative impact on their life.
Yeah, and I think I would agree with that premise. I guess, like, I have a personal example that kind of relates to this. Do you remember back when I went to the loony bin?
Yeah, you had a grippy sock vacation.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. So like I called 911 on myself because all the homies were encouraging it. You know, probably a good thing. And when they arrived, like, you know, I basically just like acted really calm, complied, and I mean, like, it seemed like they were obviously pretty anxious and like super, like, I don't want to say trigger happy, but like you could tell that they thought something worse was happening.
Right.
But I was just super chill. I just walked out with them. And yeah, I just kind of vibed. But when I did I tell you that I attempted to flee the hospital that they sent me to? Oh yeah, dude. So like, I was just like in this like regular room area, like it was just like an open area, and like I could walk wherever, you know, and nobody was watching me or anything. I was just hanging out there. I think they were just figuring out what to do with me because it was a holiday. So I just thought in my head, it's like, well, I don't really want to be here right now. I'm not really experiencing anything that I think is like warranting me being here. So I just tried to leave. I tried to take matters into my own hands. I got up out of the bed and I just walked out of the hospital. I'm like waving at people on the way out. I have like the grippy socks on and like the patient clothing. Like it's pretty wild situation. And I make my way outside and I'm starting to walk down the sidewalk and suddenly I hear it's like, where do you think you're going, buddy? And it's a cop behind me and I was just like, oh, you found me. And I just turned around and like I kind of just went back there and like he wasn't like it, as soon as he saw that I was immediately complying, he wasn't like violent or anything like that. He clearly didn't understand the situation like a mental health professional should. But like I agree with the premise generally speaking that like it feels like they're not there to actually help us. It feels like they're there to like uphold some sort of institution. That's kind of how it felt to me when I was in there. Didn't feel like I
Yeah,
was
they're just
actually
going through a checklist in their brain of what do I need to do to get to the point where someone's arrested so that this whole situation kind of collapses on itself. Like, that's their only way of de-escalating or resolving is either making arrest or not. And that's, like, what they're factoring when they're there.
Right, well, and it felt like they were keeping me in there to try and get more money out of me. Like, they kept me in there way longer than I probably should have been in there. I probably should have been out in, like, a day or two.
Yeah.
But I was in there for, like, a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think.
And then your life is super impacted because, you know, you're missing work, so you're actually getting put in a worse situation because of capitalism.
Yeah, it's kind of a miracle I didn't get fired for that, honestly. I was able to call my work and let them know the situation at the very least, so that was good. But, I mean, I can say one thing. It was a positive experience in the regard that, like, I know I never want that to happen again. So whatever I have to do to avoid that, that's what's gonna happen. So, yeah. So I think we're in agreement on that topic.
Okay.
Nice.
Apparently, we had some naders down in Missouri area today. Burlington, Waverly.
Oh, really?
Oh, Ottumwa. Yeah, this caught my eye on my YouTube feed. Did he actually get one? This is the legendary Storm Chaser Reed Timmers channel.
I'm reading the YouTube comments. Somebody said they are glorified babysitters, and then they said, "Don't let them hurt themselves or anyone else. Don't give them shoelaces, and don't let them eat glue." That's true. Honestly, when I was in the loony bin, it was kind of crazy how much stuff they didn't let you have in there. All the windows were like basically bulletproof.
Yeah.
They were like hesitant to give me a pen just because I wanted to write stuff. They wouldn't even let me have that for the longest time.
They're just treating
It was
you like
wild.
an absolute child. Oh, yep, they did get one.
Ooh.
Right here, look at this. Look at this bad boy.
In Missouri?
Yeah.
That is why it's called Misery, dude. Missouri.
Oh
See?
no, Humboldt, Kansas.
Oh. That's okay. Is it wrong to say Kansas deserves it?
I mean, slightly.
I'm just goofing. I have a lot of relatives in Kansas. I just hate going to Kansas, dude. 'Cause it
I think I got
takes-
confused because they were looking at storms at a different place, like on radar, but they were chasing in Kansas. So I got confused.
Interesting.
That's cool. Imagine just
Right
looking.
on.
Imagine chasing tornadoes like all summer long. If that's what you're doing to make money, and you're putting it on YouTube. It's a wild life, dude.
I think that'd be awesome.
Would be cool. No
I'd
doubt.
love to chase tornadoes, dude. Now imagine getting chased by the tornadoes. That's when things get real.
All right, I want to get to. I really want to get to kind of three things that I think are one thing all kind of wrapped in together, and see how far along we've come on this whole what is realism versus anti-realism, and how that plays back into really bad abortion arguments and personhood arguments.
Sure, would it be better to start with what we think are bad arguments, or would it be better to explain what we think about?
Yeah. Hold on. I'm going to go grab something really quick. You can explain to Claire, who's in chat, and anybody else in the audience. You can give some backstory. I'll be back in like 30 seconds.
Sure. First, I'll respond. Been to 3, and all they did was keep me from hurting myself, which I had no plan to do, but they offered no therapeutic help, which I did need. You know, that's another thing that I kind of took note of, is that it didn't really feel like they were trying to make any meaningful difference to me. Like, it didn't really feel like they were actually trying to teach me how to not feel the way that I did to get myself in there in the first place. It really felt like they were just like trying to psychologically evaluate me to be like, okay, when can we let this person back? And it's almost like they expect you to like kind of do it on your own accord. It's pretty messed up. But like, even when I would talk to the head psychologist in there, he was just like, I don't really know why you're in here, to be honest. And he actually let me go early as a result. They were going to hold me in there longer than a week. It was crazy. But yeah, I guess to talk about the next topic that we had going on here, we were going to talk about moral realism versus anti-realism. This is kind of like a thing that came to a head for me recently because me and Alex here were having like a conversation about it, and I was like on the fence about it a little bit, but I was leaning more towards anti-realism because like it seems to me like I guess conventionally speaking, morals are something that like exist almost entirely in our brains. Like, it's something that we evaluate from our brains, it's something that we think about from our brains, and so it's not really tangible like other things, you know? Like, we can look at the sky, that's a fact that it's blue. Gravity, that's a fact because we all experience it like physically. Like, there's things that we intuitively and conventionally know, but like even when you start to dig into those, you start to realize that facts are really more based on like consensus and things like that. And I sort of came to that conclusion in my head as we were talking about it. I was like, oh, never mind. Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely moral realism, as far as that topic's concerned. But I don't know when he's gonna get back. I can't just. Oh, are you back?
Yeah. So there's a thing
okay.
that like moral anti-realists do, where they want morality to be more self-justifying than any other like domain of knowledge. And they're like, okay, sure, you know, maybe you could point to certain things that we could all agree to or whatever, but you're still just defining it as good. Like, how do you really know what's bad? So, for example, you might ask them the question, the worst possible suffering for all conscious creatures is bad. Like, if anything's bad, that's bad. And they're like, okay, but you're just merely defining it as bad. I don't think anybody can actually believe that with a straight face. Like, they know that that's what they mean by bad, and they're playing word games. Because they're looking for something outside of what we experience to somehow justify good or bad in our experience. Well, morality has to do with what we experience intersubjectively, which means how I impact you, how you impact me, how our consciousnesses interact with each other. And so it's just a weird thing. Like, if you think about it, you could ask those same lines of questioning about what does it mean to be healthy, or what is a tree, and like at some point you can get down enough questions to where you're like, okay, but how do you really know, right? Because all we have is just other people's experiences and your experience. Okay, well, we don't really know. But if that's the case, we know nothing, and it's pointless. Like, this is the whole reason why we have domains of discourse that we speak in, is to make certain things easier to understand and actually be able to have a conversation.
Right. Well, and I think one of the strongest, and I shouldn't say strongest points, but one thing that makes like moral anti-realism so convincing, I guess, for some people, is I think it's when you look at other facts, right? It's when you look at things like gravity, you look at things like colors that we can perceive, our other senses, like they seem so conventionally apparent to us. Just because you can look at it, you can see it, right? And like 99% of people can experience it, you know what I mean? And because they seem so conventional and so straightforward, it's like these are facts, but morality, it seems like we have a lot more disagreements in that domain, you know what I mean? Especially when it comes to like questions that are a little bit more like difficult to discern. But ultimately, every single fact is based on consensus. One thing that I like brought up as an example in my head when me and Alex were talking about this, and I was like on the moral anti-realist position when we were debating it, I thought of this example in my head. You know, let's say we have a rose, you know, and generally speaking, they're the color red. Most people can agree that it is the color red. People see it, it's the color red, and we can come to a consensus on that. But there's people who are colorblind. There's people who can't see the redness of the flower, and so they wouldn't know that it's red. And the only way they can come to that conclusion is from what was the word you used again? Intersubjective consensus, right? Like that's the point. And so, if things that we can perceive with our other senses are based on consensus, then how do we determine any fact, right? Like, so there, in my head, that kind of proved to me that there has to be some sort of moral fact. You know, there has to be some fact of the matter there.
Yeah, and the basic one that I think we can all agree on is that suffering for as long as you can, as much as you can, is bad. Like, if anything is bad, that's bad.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
then we start from there.
Right, you can look at like I think there's some things that are like that we have a pretty large consensus on, right? Like murder, for example, most people would agree that's wrong. Sexual assault, that's like wrong, you know, like most people can agree on that. There's like probably several other examples you can bring up, but the point is that there are moral situations that we have enough consensus on that I think we can probably declare as fact, right?
Yep.
In the same way that we would like any other fact, I suppose. But
so that's where I was really curious to kind of get into your like where we left it the other night. Is you're really concerned about like where does this start? Like, where's the origin point for this in the universe? I feel like it would probably be the best way to do it. And I think the reason why it matters is because it has a lot of impact on a conversation like evolution, or a conversation like personhood, and by proxy, abortion.
Mm-hmm.
So,
do we have another APTer in the green room?
I saw the Snapchat story and I wanted to know.
Welcome.
Oh my god,
Today,
your profile picture is a cat.
Yeah.
I'm holding a cat.
Nice.
Holy
We're ta-
smokes. We have Sydney live for right as the abortion conversation's about to start. Are you
Dude, it was
we-
meant to be.
Dude, this is perfect. We can have a female opinion here, so that way nobody can say we're being biased. See?
Genius. All our problems are solved.
But I guess just jumping off, yeah, from like the conversation we were having yesterday, I kind of, it's really funny whenever we have conversations. Generally speaking, I have to play like a labyrinth game with nearly every single like perception I have on things to like untangle it in my mind. Generally speaking, and last night I kind of did the same thing with like the conversation we had. I think it's pretty apparent that brains are what we're valuing. Like that seems to be what consciousness emerges from, right? Like that, at least as far as all scientific consensus goes. Who knows, maybe further down the line we'll find that plants have like some sort of like microscopic brain or something like that proves this. But like either way, that's besides the point, right? It seems to be that brains are what we value, and with that in mind, like that's where the consciousness comes from. That's what we want to protect, and that's where we start distinguishing facts, right? Like I don't think without a brain you can obtain knowledge, you know what I mean? Like that's how we come to consensus, is when we talk to each other, communicate, experience things, convey those experiences to others. And it seems like because we can come to consensuses on what is good and what is bad, because there are moral facts, because we can come to conclusions, it seems like we're trending in the direction of maximum flourishing, if that makes sense. I think it still makes sense.
Yeah, so like the issue is, at what point does something have some degree of personhood?
Yeah, which I would say we attribute personhood to consciousness, like the ability to collect knowledge and experiences.
See, that's where I think it's a bad argument, because I don't think consciousness is the only thing that we attribute personhood to.
Well, when I say consciousness, I mean having a brain and being able to collect experience.
All right, so I'm gonna be that
But-
dickhead philosopher to ask you a really unfortunate question.
Do it.
Why do we want to include the no longer conscious, like the recently deceased, in our moral calculus? Why do we think that someone's been violated for something like grave desecration, as an example?
Like,
Because we don't just care about someone's grave being desecrated for our sake, because we cared about this person while they were alive. We feel like that person themselves has somehow, been violated in some way.
I don't think we actually do feel that way.
Okay.
I think that's a religious argument.
Okay.
And the reason for that
I know
is
a lot of
because-
non-religious people that feel that way.
Well, maybe right now because like it's a conventional way of thinking, but there's a lot of people who think that way because we've been like conditioned to think that way so long. Like me personally, I have absolutely no qualms with like anything done to a corpse.
Okay.
And you can take that
But
to any
that's-
logical conclusions you want. I have no problems with what people do to corpses.
You were gonna say something at some point, Sydney. I don't want to get like too far down this rabbit hole.
Yeah,
but I
yes.
hear you.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I haven't been here for the whole thing, obviously, and I'm just going off of the one thing Liam has just said, but Gooby, you gotta move. But if you're saying for people to collect experience, basically, what about like the people who are alive but cannot do that? If that makes sense, like people who are born a little bit different, or like do they not have, like, do they not deserve like lifehood things? I don't know how to word this.
Yeah, so I'll take that one.
Okay.
I don't think that anybody, like, if you're truly born with your brain so damaged that there's no capacity for you to be conscious whatsoever, I think you have a much lower degree of personhood than anybody else. If we were in a situation where we had to defy, like, fortunately we're not in this situation very often, but let's say we were limited on resources, right? So we can only keep a certain number of us alive. If you got to start picking, you're not going to pick the vegetable.
Yeah, okay, you're right.
Like, it sounds mean, I'm sorry, but, like, it's just the reality of the situation.
Yeah, because so many people are always like, oh, but we have to protect them and you
Right,
can't do
and-
this and that. But I'm like,
So
but
that's the
do
question
they
I pose to
know?
those people. That's the question I pose
Okay.
to those people is, okay, let's say you're in a situation where resources are limited, right? And now you have to make a choice, right? Like, you're in a survivor situation. Someone's got to die. How do you decide who has to die? And generally speaking, that's when people start admitting that they have varying degrees of personhood.
okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I believe you. My spaghetti is here, so I will be back.
Okay.
Right on. That was a good question. Well, and to piggyback a little bit off of that, I think it's important to distinguish that despite I think there's a scaling model of personhood, which I'm sure we'll get into here pretty soon, but we still ascribe those people some amount of personhood, right? Because it's still a conscious experience. They still are able, like, they still have a brain, they still react and collect experiences. They just don't do it in a way that we value as much.
The Wicked King pursued the lovers, Wan and...
Exactly.
Well, and here's what I would say as well. If we had enough resources to provide for every single conscious experience, like every single conscious creature, I think that'd be the right thing to do. If we had enough resources, but I don't think. Well, and that assumes that we're not infringing on other conscious experiences, right? Which is what we're going to get into here with the abortion thing. But, like, if we could have it in such a way where we're able to provide for the maximum flourishing of all conscious creatures, and for some reason that was able to involve the survival of all conscious creatures, I think we would prefer that, morally speaking.
Yeah. Well, and that's where it gets really kind of sticky with a lot of, like, pro-choice arguments, because they tend to want to act like any protections for newborns from conception is just ridiculous. Like, they want to act like there's no place in the law for considering a fetus younger than a certain moment as worthy of any moral consideration.
Right, and they try and draw, like, hard line cutoffs, basically
Right.
saying, like, before this... Well, and I guess it depends on, like, the argument being made, but I think the one that we've thought about most prominently as of recently, there's kind of, like, two of them that I think are most prominent. There's, like, the consciousness argument, but not, like, fully fleshed out, and then there's, like, the bodily autonomy argument, which also, like, ignores a lot of facts of the matter.
Yeah, the bodily autonomy argument is just straight up bad.
I think you should I think you should elaborate on that. I agree with you, but I think it's important for people to hear.
So the whole thing is, the thought experiment, if you think bodily autonomy is the only reason that you would be able to, or is the easiest, simplest way to defend why you are pro-choice or a pro-choice position, what you have to then also believe to be consistent would be, you would have to think that, let's say, two Siamese twins are born, and one of them has all of the faculties that they would need to survive, and the other one does not. The other one is relying on the other one. And maybe this person decides at some point later in life, you know what, this other person has been relying on my body to live for our entire life, and I have a right to my own body. I have bodily autonomy, and even though we were born attached together, that doesn't matter. So I'm going to end their life. I'm going to end their conscious experience. I'm going to kill them, right? I think everyone balks at that naturally, immediately, as a very, very immoral thing to do.
Remember that
It violates a lot of our different moral intuitions, and that's what shows you clearly. Just because something, like, you have autonomy over your body, if someone else through a natural process needs that body to live, you don't think you have a right to just, without consideration, end their life. The issue is the fetus a someone? The personhood is the part that matters, not the bodily autonomy. And that's where the bodily autonomy argument tends to break down. Is that a pretty good summary of it for you, Liam?
Yeah, I think I would agree.
writing.
I'm not sure. Like, you know the world's greatest violin. What's the hypothetical?
I hate that thought experiment. Yeah.
You
What
don't
is
like
that?
one? So essentially, the idea is that, let's say you wake up and you're like strapped to some sort of machine that is like essentially providing for this person to live that's like right next to you, who's sitting in a chair, and you are their sole source of survival, and they are also the greatest violin player to ever exist. And the question that is posed is, are you like, would it be morally wrong to unplug yourself from the machine, like on the grounds of, well, I guess on any grounds, like, is it morally wrong for you to unplug yourself from the machine?
Oh, no.
Well, and then you can extend the analogy a little bit further, or I guess the argument a little bit further. What if that was your child?
I feel like I can't really put an input there because I don't have a child.
Well,
And I don't know what it's like to have a
I
child.
think you could still like imagine what it would be
Like,
like. To have a
if it
child,
was like my
right?
mom, it would be like,
Yeah, there you go. What if it was your mom?
I feel like I would know that I should not do it, but I don't think I'd be able to come to the conclusion alone. So if it was just me, I don't know if I would be able to do it. Or I have to come down to like a split-second decision where I can't regret it after, kind of thing, because it's already done and there's nothing I can do about it. That's
Right.
interesting. Gooby stuff.
Well, and Alex, you said that you don't really like the. I guess I'd be interested to hear why you don't really like it. I do think there's probably a lot of holes in it, but I think you should talk about it.
For one, because it's not a natural process, so it doesn't exactly map on to the
All right,
abortion
but that's like the
question.
point of a hypothetical, right?
Well, but that's why my hypothetical actually makes the point more clearly with the Siamese twins. Because the Siamese twins were born that way. And so a natural process put them in this situation. We don't need to build anything. We don't need to do any manufacturing. We don't need to do anything. So it eliminates that kind of like otherworldly element to the thought experiment. Whenever technology gets involved in your thought experiment, I think it distracts from the core of the argument, if that makes any sense.
Well, maybe, but I mean, like, the idea is the same, though, right? It's that like this person that's in the chair that is using like your resources, like that. Is pregnancy not similar to that?
So again, that couldn't occur naturally. So someone would have to be doing some amount of labor or some amount of artificial work to allow for that situation to take place. And that's what starts to muddy the waters, I think, of the thought experiment.
Maybe. I don't know. I like it. I think it's a good thought experiment because I think that it's a similar situation because in pregnancy, obviously, the child is using your resources and it is there, and we do have the technology to eliminate it. Similarly, in the world's greatest violinist argument, which you can then like change to people that you care about, like you're still, giving them your resources in some regard. I mean, like it's the same thing as like donating. Like, let's say your child is like dying or something, and you're in like a hospital, and you're like hooked up to some machine that like allows you to give them blood. Like, let's say they're rapidly losing blood. I think it's similar. It's similar in that regard. That might be a bit of like a derailment. But either way, yeah, I don't think the bodily. Sydney, were you here when we talked about the bodily autonomy argument for abortion?
Probably not. I don't think so.
So I guess because I'd be interested to hear what your perspective is.
Yeah,
on it, because
why are you pro-choice? Like, what's the most convincing argument?
Okay. Oh wow, that's a lot. Okay. Well, I'm trying to eliminate my bias here because I hate children and I never want them.
That's fair.
As a parent, justified.
But like I also understand that there is some sort of bond between a mother and their child that like every mom has always been like, I can't explain it, you just have to live through it. So I'm kind of trying to keep that in mind. But pro-choice, it's just, it kind of, because when there's laws passed, not everywhere I don't think, but from what I've seen just going on as I grow up, is that it's either strictly abortion is illegal or abortion is not illegal. But that means under any circumstance. So like there've been cases of like, you know, young people like forced to go through this. It's life-threatening, but they're like, oh, you know, but the baby. And I'm like, but the baby doesn't know any different. It's like someone who's born blind. It's like, oh, that's so cruel that like how like they could be born without sight, but they don't know any different. They literally cannot comprehend anything else different. Their quality of life is probably the exact same. But besides that, I feel like if you don't want something living in your, it's kind of a parasite. Because it's not benefiting you at all.
That's the bodily autonomy argument, for sure.
Yeah, okay.
In a nutshell. You just made it.
Yeah. So I guess that's what that is. And it's also why I don't think it's I don't think it's anybody else's business what you decide to do with something that you have in your body, like what you created. It is technically yours. And what you decide to do with your things. I just don't see why other people care so much. It's not your baby. It's not gonna.
I want to ask some annoying philosophical questions.
Okay.
Real quick, just to clarify.
I'm ready.
Right. So, do you think that somebody can belong to you?
I think. Well, it depends on what you mean by somebody. So, like, is this just like does a fetus involve into somebody?
No, well, that's actually the point. So that's a different argument, right? Because when you said that's why I wanted to plant a flag there, because that actually gets into the realm of personhood of when does the fetus become a person? Because let's say I think what you actually think, or at least what I suspect based on what you just said, is that the fetus is not a person until it's born.
About then, pretty much. I mean, there's obviously, if you're like due in a week and you're like, hey, like, I mean, if someone still wants to, I mean, you can't actually do anything at that point in time to terminate your pregnancy unless you take it into your own hands. Like, that one's kind of weird. I still think that that's okay, but like, it's hard because like morals are made up, like they don't really exist. So it's like
we have all kinds of disagreements because we actually just talked about that. I think morals are not made up.
Look at that, full circle.
We have come full circle.
I feel, I mean, if you're close to term, I feel like you probably should just carry it unless there's like a serious health risk to you. But like in all other terms, I think you should just be able to do what you want with what's inside of your body. Like if you don't want to donate your kidney, then why is that acceptable? Or like if you do want to donate your kidney, why is that acceptable?
So I'm gonna ask you a thought experiment that I've asked a number of people about a similar situation. I just want to know what your I'll accept your view of things, that morals aren't real. We kind of make them up as we go for the purpose of this, because I don't think it actually matters. Okay, I disagree with that, but and I think I have good arguments for why I think morals are actually real and objective, but I don't think it matters because we still care about them, right?
Yeah.
We still want to be
That's
more
why, like,
moral.
it's something that kind of keeps us going.
Yep, exactly.
So-
We need it for functioning of our species.
Yes.
So let's say you had a situation where two Siamese twins were born.
Okay.
Okay? Conjoined twins, as they're often called now, I guess. And one of them can live completely on their own with their body. They don't need the other head with the other brain. They have all the organs necessary to live. Everything is good. But the other person, the other head, and the other brain that's there requires some of their machinery to live. Would you think it was okay for the first Siamese twin to terminate the other one? Because, hey, look, you know, sucks to be you, but, like, you're basically a parasite using my body and my resources, and I don't want you around anymore.
I feel like it kind of depends. Like, how reliant are they on the other twin? Like, do they talk to each other? Do they hang out? Or is it just, like, literally, for lack of better words,
Well, they
a
can't get
actual
away from each
tumor?
other. So they actually
Okay.
can't get away from each other. This is a common problem with conjoined twins that can't be separated, is it's a big psychological problem for them.
Yeah.
Because it's annoying, straight up, to have another person around you 24/7. Like,
Well, yeah,
doesn't
it
matter
is.
who that person is.
Yeah. 100%. Oh, that's so interesting because I feel like there's so many different ways that this could go, and it would I would still think it's okay.
See, this is why it's a better thought experiment, Liam.
Because on one end, it's like, oh, but like, who are you to determine that you can take away this person's life? But on the other hand, it's like, what kind of psychological damage is this putting on the more independent twin?
Yeah, and
Like, is it worth both of them suffering like this just so this thing on the side can essentially keep breathing?
So I think you've already actually admitted your hand to some degree.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, by even considering the other person, in this case, I think for you to be consistent with your take on abortion, if that fetus was a person, it would be worthy of consideration.
Consideration, yes.
Yes. How much depends on to what degree it's a person. And if we think it's an equal person, well, then it deserves equal consideration.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But if
So-
it's not a person, then...
That, to me, is why bodily autonomy arguments for pregnancy actually hold up. Because I do think fetuses have different degrees of personhood, even from the very beginning. Because I think that we're operating on a gradient theory of personhood without admitting that that's what we're doing. And I don't think consciousness is the only thing we care about. I actually think there's a number of other factors to what we grant personhood to. That's where Liam and I were about to get to, and why I was asking about, like, grave desecration, because I disagree with him about that. I think we are correct, morally speaking, to be offended when people defame the dead.
It also think that it's, like, kind of morally incorrect to, like, do that to a dead body, but at the same time, I don't understand why I think that way, because everything else in my head is screaming, why do you care, though? They're
Welcome
dead.
to Average People Talking, where I help answer those questions.
Like, why do I think that way? Like, because in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, well, it's supposed to be bad, so it's bad.
All right,
But
so
at
before
the
we
same
get
time,
there,
I'm like,
before we get there, I'm gonna actually bring up another funny,
Okay.
a couple thought experiments. Okay.
okay,
That
I like
think
these.
that I think will actually help you understand how you think about these. And a lot of these, like, are mine, like, genuinely. Like, I didn't look these up. Okay.
I like it, Picasso.
Imagine you go to a faraway island. And on this island, you determine that any actual, like, biological life that would have been sentient is gone and has been dead for at least 100 years or just gone, right? You don't know why for sure. They're just gone.
Yeah.
However, a seemingly semi-conscious robot is left. that remembers those other people, that can talk back to you, give you concrete answers, doesn't seem to have emotions or anything, right? So they're kind of like an early Data from like Star Trek. Like they're just like an android, like kind of a robot, right?
Yeah.
Is that robot worthy of moral consideration?
My answer is no, by the way, but I'll let you guys say
Yeah.
that. Or it might be yes, but I wait. So
Like, what do you like? Oh, hold on, I need to collect words for a second.
Again, they don't seem capable of emotions, but they are
Okay.
able to talk back and forth with you, have like regular conversations. They seem to remember and have known relationships with the past group of people that were here, right? The actual biological sentient life forms that were at one spawn there. They can tell you stories about how they came to be and who made them, right?
but they don't have emotions. That's like the key word, the phrase you're using, though, right? They don't seem to display emotions.
They at least don't seem to. Yep.
I mean, it's a robot.
So in other words, it's a Siri robot.
Do they
But a
respond
Siri
to
robot with a
stimuli?
memory. Yes.
I mean, I think no matter what happens to the robot, it's completely fine. But, I do see how that might disrupt other things for other people. I think just the robot, like this robot alone, it's a robot. It is a robot. I don't like people have like animatronic toys all the time.
Okay. Yes.
It's
Okay.
the same thing.
All right.
Well,
so
my-
now, no. Okay, go ahead.
I was just gonna say real quick too. Does the robot respond differently to stimuli? Like, does it have like responses that seem to match the stimuli in a way that like brains typically would? Like, does it seem to exhibit like reactions to suffering and flourishing in a way that is expected, or at least like conceivable by
It
a
does.
brain?
It doesn't seem that it wants to suffer. Like it doesn't. It seems like it wants to not suffer. It has goals, right? However, no, you can't see any evidence of conscious suffering, like pain or negative reactions to environment, right? The only kind of suffering it can experience is failure to accomplish its goals. Which, granted, our existing AIs that we have now also like can display this, right?
But they seem to want to avoid suffering and
Well,
and
doesn't
achieve flourishing.
Doesn't
seem-
like right? Yeah, because like doesn't ChatGPT like will sometimes talk to you and be like, "Hey, I want to help you with this. I feel like I'm not able to help you unless you give me the right answer." Right? So like, there's a certain way of interpreting that as with regards to a specific goal that this AI wants to accomplish. It can't accomplish it, and it might be suffering in that way. It might not be the same way that you and I experience suffering, but it is a form of failure to accomplish a goal.
Then I would say yes, it is worthy of moral consideration.
Interesting.
I would say more of like, does it thrive to stay alive? Because if you take people who are kind of like this robot, like grade A psychopaths, they still want to live. It is like biological. It is literally biologically wired into your head to do things to survive, like suicidal people looking both ways before they cross the road. They still eat, they drink water, etc. But this robot, if you were to hold a gun to this robot, I don't.
Okay, so
think
let's say you ask it, and it doesn't care. It doesn't care about that. It doesn't care whether or not it continues to exist.
Yeah. So see, morally, I feel like it doesn't matter then. If it does not care, well then we have our answer.
It doesn't care whether it wants to exist, but it does seem like it exhibits signs of tendency towards flourishing.
It won't be satisfied if it doesn't accomplish a goal.
Yeah, I don't
And
know.
that's
It's
like
a
and that's
robot.
like the only thing that displays anything of the nature of what I'm talking
Yes.
about.
Yep.
Then no, it's not worthy of moral consideration.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to make this good. I actually agree. No moral consideration, right?
Yes.
This is the Turing test, ultimately, right? Is
Okay.
what would determine whether or not an AI actually has the ability to consciously suffer, right? So we're sort of dancing around something that's known as the Turing test.
Okay.
But what actually gets really important with this is I just created a religion and civilization called Power Noodle, and I think that's the funniest thing I've ever done.
I'm eating noodles right now.
We worship the almighty Power Noodle. All right, so check it out. Slightly different version. Immediately upon finding the robot, somebody decides it's a threat and terminates it.
Okay.
An hour later, you run into one sentient being on the island that immediately runs up to the robot and is absolutely aghast and crying over the death of this robot. I mean, like, they are super upset. They feel like they just lost their best friend. Do you feel like you morally wronged them by killing the robot?
Yeah.
And do you feel that way because it's their property, or because to them it was a person?
To them, it was a person. Is why
Exactly
I would do that.
why, when we're talking about degrees of personhood, some amount of your social standing actually is part of how much personhood you have. On some level, there's sort of a popularity contest, where if the robot doesn't actually matter to anyone, then no one cares. But if the robot matters to just one person, then we do grant it some degree of personhood. It's why we care about Data in Star Trek.
That's why I cried when Wilson's volleyball floated away.
Yep.
I don't want to think about that. That emotionally traumatized me as a kid.
I'm blowing minds right now. What do you think about that, Liam?
I'm initially inclined to disagree, and I'm just trying to think it through.
We, on some level,
Did we morally wrong them? That is the answer that you are looking for.
yeah, I'm confident that we did morally wrong them, and I think that's because one element of the gradient of, like, personhood. Let's say personhood's a scale from, just for simplicity's sake, 0 to 10, right? Social standing might only be able to get you to a 1. Consciousness might be getting you from 1 to 7, right? We'll quibble over that, and over time it will be hard to get the data in hand. But it's clear, even if I have none of the other criteria that would grant me personhood, even if the only one that I have is social standing, right? Then it matters. If your kid comes up to you and is like, has this like personhood like friendship with their teddy bear.
How did they develop their relationship?
Well, purely in their own mind.
Feel.
Like, did they have a relationship with the robot? Like, was there, like, did they do anything together? Did, like, the
Yes.
robot, like, I guess
It was
elaborate
their
a bit on
companion on the
relationship.
island. It was their companion on the island. Think
So it
Wilson.
provided them companionship.
Yeah, think Wilson that can talk like a Siri. So again,
Oh,
it
I don't
seems-
like that.
I know.
Oh, I don't like that at all. Oh. It's weird because, okay, I have this stuffed seal that I got when I was getting my first surgery. I was 8 years old. I was terrified. I have extreme health anxiety. We all know this. And my mom had no money at the time because she was fighting for everything to keep custody of me. So she had no money, like in debt, can't even buy bread. We went to the hospital to see someone else. Saw the seal in the gift shop and I begged my mom for it and she was like, no, I just can't afford it. So I was like, oh, okay. A few days later, I'm in the hospital for appendicitis and she surprises me with this seal and I, to this day, cannot go anywhere without it. If someone took that away from me, honestly, they would have a death wish above their head. I'm not kidding. Like, I would go into full. I might actually be capable of murder if someone purposefully did that right in front of me, knowing that it would do this to me, even if they didn't know.
And obviously, you would probably hold it against them more if they knew the importance to you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like, if it was an accident, you'd be able to figure out, like, rationalize that and come to a certain point of forgiveness. It would still suck and hurt, and you'd probably secretly harbor some pretty negative feelings towards them. But you'd recognize that they didn't know that they were harming someone who's a person to you.
Yeah.
Right.
I would see if that was the case, I would feel bad about killing them, but it would still happen. Like, I feel like I'd still be capable of it, but I would feel bad after. Not after I would feel bad, but maybe not during.
All right. There you have it.
The thing I'm thinking of is because I know exactly how you're going to extend this argument to corpses. I know exactly how you're going to do it. And so, I guess my question would be, it seems like, would you say companionship and social standing are effectively the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the social criterion of personhood. Let me actually pull this up on screen for everyone to see. Social criterion for personhood. Personhood can be defined by different criteria, including genetic criterion, based on having human DNA, cognitive criterion, social criterion, based on being a member of a social community that recognizes certain rights and responsibilities. That's the, like, philosophical definition of, like, the social criterion of personhood.
Do you think that corpses can be a part of a social community?
Yeah, I think for eons we had a certain kind of, like, we continued to operate as though certain corpses still had standing in terms of social community. You might think that's silly or
I don't really care about what happened. I think it, like, our corpses, like the object itself.
No. Sorry. Not the corpse. Not the corpse itself. Not the material. But the person that the corpse represents. So here's what I'm getting at. We clearly can treat inanimate objects as proxies for persons. And we do all the time.
Sure.
So that might be a headstone or a gravesite.
Let me think about that one for a minute.
This article is intriguing on the very idea of criteria for personhood. This chapter examines the familiar criterial view of person according to which possession of personal properties such as self-consciousness, emotional, blah, blah, blah.
So here's a.
Okay, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so here's the thing. So like, there are people who will, like, keep corpses around, right? Like in an emotional sense. Like, if there's like there are people who will do that. Would you agree with that?
I would want to know more specifically what you mean. Like, give me an example.
Like, I don't know, there's like some weird serial killers who, like, will kill their victims and then, like, keep them around as friends. Like, keep the corpses around as, like, social proxies. Like, I think that is a phenomenon that does occur in our society.
Okay, I mean, super rare situation there, but I guess I can grant it. They create a social community of persons based on previous persons that are now deceased. Right?
Right. But and I feel like most of society would find that abhorrent, right? Like, that's disgusting.
Yeah, but that's just because they find, like, the act of, like, killing them in the first place disgusting. I don't think somebody would find that disgusting if it was just like, what if you're alone on an island and everybody else that you got there with was older than you and they all died, but then you just kept them around. Like, that becomes a lot less disgusting.
I
Because
don't think it does.
that was your whole social community, and now they're all gone, and so you're trying to find a way to keep a connection and keep your social community alive because you feel like you need it for survival. It's a very natural human need to need social standing for survival.
Right, but to use the corpses as those proxies, it seems like most people find that to be disgusting behavior.
I mean,
Even
maybe.
in that situation.
Maybe, I don't know. I'm not so sure they would. I don't know. Like, that's one I would actually want to pull.
Yeah, I would take a gander that poll would.
But that's because people are just like, yeah, corpses.
But that's like, it's still a majority of people. Like, there seems to be something gross about keeping it around, something that we don't feel like. I would argue people don't think that's right.
I don't know that they would see it as a moral problem. I would think they would think it was gross just because they're grossed out by like decaying and rotting flesh. Maybe there's somebody in chat that can share their opinion here. I don't know if we have anybody left. I'm curious.
I feel like it's okay to do that. Like, they're dead. If you like, what you want to do with that is up to you. I feel.
Well, I guess that's my point, is that I don't think people care what is done with corpses.
Well, hold on. You just made the argument. I'm so confused. You were just saying most people would find it gross if the alone person on an island used the other corpses around them.
Wait, one second. I think I misspoke. I may have to bite the bullet on this one. It's hard for me to admit that I'm wrong, like, mid-action. But I guess just for me, like, I don't know. I don't really feel any moral compulsion one way or the other towards what happens to a corpse past death.
No, but you do care about what happens if that corpse was as a representation of a person to somebody else. Maybe you can't see a situation where that corpse would be a person to you. But just like the Siri robot could be a person to somebody else, that corpse could also be a representation of a person to somebody else. Does that make sense?
So if the corpse exhibits social standing in some regard,
In some
then-
other conscious mind.
then that would... Okay. Yeah, I think I agree.
Would grant it some degree of personhood. Granted, a very small amount. It's going to be like the last choice of preference on the totem pole when all things are considered, right?
Yes.
Like, everything else is going to come first. But if we can afford to take consideration, we will.
What's kind of interesting then?
What's that?
Would we not be able to extend moral consideration to plants then?
Sure, if one person cared about, but I again, that's where somebody, I don't think you can claim all plants, like, and convince anybody else in any kind of serious way, right? If somebody had if somebody had the one plant that they really cared about, you're gonna respect that.
What about, like, a tribe living in a rainforest? And
That
they
has,
have, like, great respect for the trees that are around them. Like, or Native Americans, a great example.
So, how about Avatar? Like, that's
Perfect.
literally the plot of Avatar.
Exactly. We
Yeah.
ascribe personhood to plants. In that.
Yeah, okay, but I think your opinion on whether or not the plants can make some sacrifices immediately changes as you find out that the only way that the what are they called? The Na'vi? Is that what they're called in that movie? What are the people called?
The blue people?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Na'vi.
Yeah, if you find out that the Na'vi are going to die unless they start eating some of that vegetation, which obviously it's also assumed that they probably are eating some of that vegetation.
Sure. But you can see that it's like taken to the maximum degree that like they are allowing the plants to live, like as much as possible.
Yeah, they avoid harming if they can. And they only take when they need. Which is, by the way, how we treat all other persons when we're considering persons.
Right, like that's there are some persons that
We're going to come really full circle, because that's the whole problem with capitalism, is it actually dehumanizes people. And their labor.
Well, and you could argue, like, during wars, we've taken away personhood from people.
Yeah. We do it. We definitely do it with criminals, too.
Yeah. So, I was right, then. You can give plants personhood. In your...
Yes, but that's not exactly what you were arguing, you goon.
Right,
You goon!
You're correct. But I do think... Here's what I do think. I think that I was on the right track with the maximum flourishing and minimum suffering, because
what I disagreed with you there is that you wanted to define all life continuing as a moral good. And I think you have all persons extending their existence or continuing to exist is a moral good, not life. I think we only start to actually care about...
And I've come that far.
Yeah. I think we only start to care about life when it actually becomes like a... how to say... When it becomes conscious. When it becomes some degree of a person. That's when we start to care about like... the outcome of life and whether or not it lives or dies.
Right. I think we're on the same page now, but now it's time to get down to brass tacks. How do we justify murdering fetuses?
Yeah, well, that's problematic, isn't it? Even given this view.
Yeah, well, I mean, murder already kind of begs the question, but...
yes, it does, but
in the opposite direction.
in my view, I'm actually more or less in this case calling all fetuses some degree of person, as soon as there's one person to care about them, one other person to include them in their moral community, and that might only be the mother.
Right,
but it could be the father too, couldn't it?
Could be. I feel like if both parents, though, are like, yeah, we don't want this, I don't feel like... I don't know why, because everything else argues against it, just like after everything that you guys were just talking about, the plants and the robots. But I feel like only those two opinions actually give it personhood.
So I'll tell you why I think we still think it's okay to terminate fetuses.
Okay.
Even if we grant everything that I just said, right, and you're coming at it with this mindset, you still understand that, for the most part, a fetus will eventually turn into a life that, really from the moment of conception, creates a large amount of suffering and potential hardship for the much more conscious, much more persons, right? Like the fully established persons, which are the parents. And so if there's a preference to be made, if the parents don't feel like they have the resources to handle this, we feel like it's okay that they can make a sacrifice here in this case.
Can I ask the hard question?
It's the same reason why we don't like have a huge problem with somebody giving their dog up for adoption if they don't feel like they can take care of it anymore. And a variety of other things. It's not that we don't think the dog is worthy of moral consideration. We just recognize that it's pretty far down the totem pole.
Well, and I don't know if this will be a hard question or not. I think it is a hard question because generally, like second and third trimester abortions poll very, very poorly. But under your framework, this would be allowed.
Oh, absolutely it would.
Yeah.
And so that's where I want to ask the hard question. Well, first of all, so it is allowed, like you're like based off of your moral, and I guess to be clear to people in the audience here, I agree with Alex here, but I want to ask the question so that we can like try and like play against the other viewpoint here. Obviously, like it seems like we have a pretty strong moral intuition that like there is like it seems like past the 20-week cutoff mark, it starts pulling extremely unfavorably. Abortion, generally speaking.
Right, because most other people haven't thought about it. Let's be clear, most people have not thought about it to the level that we're talking about it and thinking about it right now.
Yeah.
We're in the realm of 90 to 95% of people who have ever discussed abortion have not talked about the gradient theory of personhood.
Correct. But
You mean the average person isn't like making comparisons to plants and robots on an island in dead people communities? What do you mean?
Well, welcome to APT. We do that here.
yes.
It's a good time.
But I guess so. Like, so I guess that's like the framework then, right? Is like, because you know what, like the staunch anti-abortionist is gonna be like. You know, they're gonna say, well, so you're okay with second and third trimester abortions, like assuming that there is nobody around to value that person. Like, let's say even the mother doesn't value it.
It's not, at that point, it's everything in the basket, and it actually doesn't even matter. It's number one, while this infant has a capacity to deploy consciousness, it has much less of a capacity to deploy the consciousness that we normally recognize in other things that we care about, right? So it's clearly less of a person on all of the criterion for personhood. It's less in terms of social standing than most other persons. It's less in terms of cognitive it's less in terms of sentience. It's less all the way down. The only part where it's, you know, fully, and I don't think this one should be included, but some people might include human DNA as like an extra like benefit towards personhood. Right? And you could maybe argue that, morally speaking, we would prefer our species over other ones. If we created AIs that would eventually want to kill us off, and it became an us or them situation, we wouldn't, like, probably look at that as a situation where, like, we should do the right thing. And, like, we're probably going to kill the AIs to save ourselves, is my guess. And we're going to justify that because we're going to think we're more persons than the AIs because we're human, right? So when you look at all those criteria and you're looking on a gradient, that infinite, again, we can't do the math. We can't get the data in hand. But we could say that maybe that infant that's in the womb at like 27 weeks is a 1.78 person versus a baby at like 2 weeks old is probably more like a 5.5 person. And, like, an adult is a full 10 with all their faculties.
Yeah.
I only feel like a 3 sometimes.
Well, Jesus. He's getting emotional in APT.
All right, we're now transitioning to the part of the show where I do Sydney some therapy.
You want another hard question, I think?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Here's a hypothetical. Let's say a random baby is placed in a cradle, like let's say 2-week-old baby, out the womb. It's fully fledged baby. It's placed on the doorstep of a psychopath. The psychopath gives 0 fucks. Nobody knows about the existence of this baby other than obviously the person who carried it, brought it to the door, but they also don't care about the baby. Let's say a psychopath is the one who delivered the baby and put it on the door of this other psychopath. Should that psychopath be able to murder that baby?
Well, I mean, it's again, yeah, because it has the capacity to deploy consciousness and conscientious experience. Like, so granted, it's 0 for 1 on the social criterion, right? So
Yeah.
the baby is still some degree of person, and why is the psychopath doing it? Like, those
Maybe
questions
it's an
start to matter.
inconvenience. Maybe the psychopath doesn't have the resources to like provide for the child. And,
Oh well,
it
in
just-
that case, like if it's a choice between the psychopath and the baby,
right? They have like, or you know, actually, here's a better way to put it. Should the psychopath be able to leave the baby on the front doorstep?
if literally taking on the responsibilities of that baby means the psychopath is going to have an imminent massive decline in well-being all the way towards death, then yes, absolutely.
What if it's just
I mean,
an
I feel like
inconvenience?
if they put it on someone's doorstep and didn't dispose of it themselves, wouldn't that mean that they do care like a little bit?
They just felt like, you know what, I'm just gonna leave it here. I don't really care.
Okay.
They're just like, whatever. The to the psychopath, it's just like a massive inconvenience. It's like, oh shit, now I got this kid around, and it's like, now I gotta watch over it, and that kind of sucks. I don't really want to do that. Should the psychopath be able to leave the baby on?
Then I'm saying no.
I feel like it doesn't matter.
Then I'm
And
saying
I
no.
don't want that to come across as an asshole response, but I feel like it, like, should or should not in this scenario.
Well,
No.
Does it matter?
Maybe this added part of it would help as well. Nobody would know that it happened.
Yeah, like I feel like since because of that, it.
Well, then it's
only-
irrelevant. Hold on.
Yeah,
then
because
it
it only
then it's a
matters
bad
to people
question.
in the scenario. So if all of them are agreeing, the infant obviously isn't capable of making a decision. So if the two adults are, if the two people who can make decisions are both like, yeah, fuck this kid, then technically I feel like yes, it's okay because only they know. It's like a little society, a little small group consensus, which is. Like,
It becomes a
what
really
this
bad
is.
question very quickly. And the reason it becomes a very bad question is because, again, part of being a psychopath is your inability to care or worry sufficiently about the well-being of other conscious creatures, right?
But are they
And so-
incapable of deploying a intersubjective experience?
Well, yes,
That's a big
but
word.
not in the same way. Look, who is? Oh, I'm sorry. Who are you, is the psychopath?
Yeah, is the psychopath incapable of deploying an intersubjective experience with the baby?
I'm not sure we know.
Intersubjective meaning.
Yeah, maybe we should
Okay, I
start
got
to
it, I got
reuse
it.
that one a lot.
Okay, I see it. I'm like,
I'm not.
trying to
I'm
open
not,
Google as
I'm
fast as I
not
can.
sure.
I'm not stupid, I swear.
So, like, one of the marks of psychopaths is they have literally zero ability. They also tend to have, like, a low degree of what we call, like, theory of mind, right? Where they, like, don't ascribe other beings as having minds. Like, they don't recognize them as a mind. So, I'm not sure we know the answer to that.
Interesting.
Okay, wait, hold on. I gotta I gotta relook at this definition. It's a thing between conscious mind shared by more than one conscious mind.
So in a vacuum, if taken in a vacuum, this situation, you would just say that it is a bad question.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think... Because the issue is, again, when we talk about a moral decision, it necessarily matters that there's, like, a caring, right? Like, there's someone to care about the situation.
Sure. Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. Well then, yeah. Let's
If you
not
guys-
take it in a vacuum. Then let's assume people care.
If you guys are watching my stream right now, this is about to be, like, the most important brawl I've ever played in Hearthstone in my life.
You get the one drop. Well, the 1/1 in the brawl
I
for
hope
sure.
I do.
You get it. I'm giving you good blessings.
Oh, yes, baby.
See, I told you. APT magic, baby. It's like
Nice.
Mile High magic.
All right. Anyways, go continue.
Okay, so let's not take that the question in a vacuum. Let's assume people care. What makes like the baby's 2-week consciousness valuable enough to like, because like I said, it's basically no social state, absolute zero.
Okay. So let me ask you this.
Mhm.
Let me ask you a moral question that I think, like, not to answer your question with a question, but I think it'll help refine your question into a better question.
Sure, ask.
Should we? Are you okay with me sacrificing an animal or one of my children if it's the only way that the rest of my social community can thrive and survive?
Am I fine with you sacrificing a member of your family so that the rest of your community can survive?
Yes. And it doesn't even have to be necessarily like my family, right? It could be an animal that we have or whatever.
Yes, I think so.
I've got no other choice. Like, I don't perceive any other way out of the situation.
Right, yeah, I think so.
Okay. So in that case, the kind of reasoning that we're doing is it would be bad to do it, but it's the least bad of a myriad of bad choices, right?
Right, yeah, like if you let the animal live or whatever, the family member live, and like, let's say the community is like 1,000 like healthy, respectable, conscious beings, like with high social standing, high amounts of personhood we describe. If you let 1,000 of those people die, like that would be bad.
Okay.
Much worse.
So the reason why, so again, what I'm saying in a case of any abortion, or even like the psychopath and the infant kind of case, right, is the only way it would be acceptable is if it was necessary. Because it's bad no matter what. And then really what we're doing is we're doing a calculus about what's necessary. Does that make sense?
Well, I guess like what's sure, but what's the like a 2-week-old baby? I think a lot of people would agree is not like a very conscious creature, or at least not like as much as like we respect with like especially a full-grown adult, but even like somebody who's like 5 years old or even 4 years old, even 2 years old for that matter. A 2-week-old child is just like an eating and shitting factory that cries a lot. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
And so and so it lacks the social standing, and it clearly doesn't have a consciousness that at least conventionally seems valuable to us.
Okay.
So why shouldn't the psycho let's say that it's like it's not going to lead him to death to take the child in, but it's going to be like a pretty huge inconvenience. Like it's going to be really, it's going to suck.
Yeah, well then I mean it starts to change the calculus. But I mean, how much do you value the potential to develop for that infant?
Is that a part of your personhood scale?
I think it has to be. I think we are reasonable enough creatures that we can evaluate something's like potential for future personhood, not just its current personhood.
Okay, so then like what about fetuses that are just conceived? Why don't we value, like, do we include that in our calculations for that?
I mean, sometimes the mother does, and again, if only one person does, then fair enough.
Right on. Well, you beat my litmus test or whatever.
Of whether or not my position's consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that got it. You got me there.
Yeah, I think.
And like I said, just to be clear to the audience, like I agree with him. I just wanted to see if I could.
I think I really am the most consistent person I've ever met on this. Like I think mine is actually more consistent than Destiny's. Like, and that's actually my whole point of like the problem I have with Destiny's is on some level his personhood argument eliminates a lot of people that we actually want to grant personhood to. And his answer to that problem is to just be like, fuck the dogs. Your dog doesn't mean shit.
To be fair, I think we've just established that he's likely psychopathic, so I mean...
Right, yeah, right. Like, yeah.
Oh.
So, I guess in this world we probably wouldn't ascribe Destiny that much personhood either. I'm just kidding. That's a meme. It's a meme.
Uh-huh. For legal reasons? In Minecraft? In Minecraft?
In Minecraft. Exactly.
I think I'm, like, kind of boned here. I don't even know.
Nah, you got it. What the
Don't
f-
really
Dude, this is why I don't
understand.
play Hearthstone. This is why I don't play Hearthstone anymore. There's too many wacky things going on here. It doesn't
Does
even
that
look like
mean
Hearthstone.
you'll play Smite with me?
No.
Fuck.
Smite sucks.
Well,
So,
What happened to League?
was there anything else on the topic list for today that we wanted to bang out?
You know, I think those were like the two big ones. The first one was like the one that we had some disagreement on, which we eventually came to like consensus on. Let's see, self-justice. Did we want to? First of all, I don't think we need to talk about Vosh. Because I think I agree with you. I don't think that's necessary. I think Anna is pretty crazy after actually looking into it.
Dude, I'm telling you, I smell money.
I don't. Well, and I don't know if it's money. I think she's just genuinely upset. I think she's just actually pissed off. I think she's triggered. I don't know if it's money.
I hate her.
It's like the political community. So, Sydney, just to catch up to speed, there's like a popular left-wing do I call them a news outlet or political organization? One of the two.
They claim to be news.
I would refer to them as a political organization.
Well, they have a slant, right? But they're news plus commentary, but they cover the news. They don't just cover political news. They cover other news as well.
Right, but they also respond to like independent entities like Vosh and Destiny and like
a
Ben
person
Shapiro.
who reports
Yeah.
on things.
But that just means they're not. They want to be the people to tell you about a story first. That makes them news.
Sure. I can, you know, either way. Popular left-leaning news outlet, the Young Turks. There's two like main figureheads of the organization. One of them's named Cenk Uygur. I don't know how to say his last name. Uygur.
I think you pretty much nailed it.
Yeah, close enough.
Look at that! I just got a free Ragnaros. This is out of control. This is absolute.
Wait, I didn't know they put that fucking monster back in the game.
Yeah, Rag is back.
This is why I don't play Hearthstone. But anyway, so popular left-leaning news outlet. The other host is Anna Kasparian, and they kind of like I'm still like not fully like. It seems like she saw one word in a scientific article and then just got upset, like uber triggered about it.
That's literally what happened. Like that's
now she's like a
that's not
right-
even like an exaggerated interpretation. That is a honest and good faith interpretation of the event.
Yeah. Like she saw a scientific paper that was like covering some sort of topic, and they essentially referred to what would normally be referred to as women, like in the past. They referred to like they used the term birthing persons, and it made Anna upset.
Oh, so they're
Wait, I
calling
think
us
I saw a clip
birthing
about
persons
this.
now.
No, I think I saw a clip of people talking about this because there was that one person who was like, well, birthing persons aren't always like women and all of that stuff.
Correct.
Right,
I
because
don't know.
trans men can birth
Yeah.
as well. Technically, they have the
So-
biological means to do so.
So, in other words, this wasn't like in an article. This wasn't like somebody saying this is how we should refer to people. This was a scientific journal referring to medical information.
Yeah, I feel like that's completely fine. That's what it is.
Exactly. You're a birth.
Like, it's not like they're referring to these people who are giving birth by name and like giving like them a little backstory and like, oh, and their favorite color is purple. No.
Right,
not how
yeah,
that
they're just
is.
using a term and it triggered her, and so now she's basically become like a right-wing grifter, which that might be a dishonest way to frame it, but either way, she
No,
said-
I think it's honestly like
yeah,
she's hanging out with all of those people. Like,
yeah, she's like, you know, the difference between somebody like Ben Shapiro and Bosch
Oh my
is that
God.
Ben Shapiro actually treats women with respect. It's like, okay, yeah, she's gone. She's gone.
yeah,
But
like you're out.
basically-
I'm out. I get off the bus right as as anybody, you know, says anything positive about Ben Shapiro, basically.
Well, and so like my initial thought was right, and so this is like a thing for me, right? They were covering like a trans
Wet ass
topic,
P-word.
like trans in sports, and I think like one topic that I feel like people who are supportive of like trans rights and stuff, like generally speaking, they're not willing to bite the bullet on the fact that ultimately like trans women have like an unfair advantage in women's sports, which is just that is true, generally speaking. I think, right? Like, are we agreed on that?
I think that is the conventional wisdom. There are some people making the argument that, and I don't think they're winning it, but they're making the argument that if you took puberty blockers and estrogen before puberty, then all of the advantages of gender or of your biological sex are then removed. I don't know enough about the science to debate that. I just know that that's currently where the debate is at.
Right, which I don't think I don't necessarily think there's enough science to support that, but I think right now we can confidently say that people who are in fact like we are like the people that are identified in our society as trans women, I think generally across the board we can agree are going to be like more competitive in female sports. Like I think that is a true statement to make. And from my and this was my initial understanding of it, and this is why like I was initially a Vosh hater, and I don't know if you know who Vosh is, Sydney. He's like a heavily progressive, left-leaning political commentator. I wouldn't refer to him as
he played video games at one point. Like he had a Twitch platform that was about gaming, but eventually it just became all politics. I don't know how that happened.
Oh wow. I
guess
that's happening to a lot of people.
Oh yeah. Do you
Just
know
in
who
everyday
Destiny is?
life. No.
Oh, Destiny's also. He's like probably the most popular politics streamer, I would say. I think that's fair to say.
I think that's
No,
completely fair to say.
he's the most popular competent one who like is taken seriously in the politics community. Because I would say
I think
Hassan's
Hassan's taken seriously. I mean, he goes to Politicon and like is given a platform and a stage, and like
But he shouldn't
he's been responded to by politicians who have like debated him or like had conversations with him. So I mean,
he's a grifter.
I sure, but that's 90% of that sphere. So like you can't just you know.
I don't think I don't think he is participating in the space in good faith. I think Vosh
90% of political commentary online, outside of very few places, like 90% of that sphere is bad faith conversation.
Okay, fair enough. Either way, Destiny is one of the more popular ones. I think it's fair to say he popularized the genre. Either way, so that Vosh is like this very progressive, left-leaning political commentator streamer, and he was like, you know, kind of like calling out the Young Turks, kind of shitting on Anna. And initially I was just like, well, I like the Young Turks, and then like the only take that I knew that was causing contention was their take on trans sports. So I was just like, I think that's a good take, so like, fuck this Vosh guy. But then I looked into it further and I'm like, oh, never mind, Anna's like actually crazy.
Yeah.
Because I agree with them that I think if like progressives that are like pushing for more rights for trans people in society, I think if they just bit the bullet on the female sports thing, like conservatives would look absolutely nuts. They'd look absolutely crazy. Because then you would just see that they're like, yeah, they just hate trans people, and then it's like, okay, well that's not cool.
It's one of those same situations for people on the left, like kind of like their take on guns.
Yep.
Like if they gave up this one issue, the amount of support they would garner is actually breathtaking.
Yeah, absolutely. Like they just need to bite the bullet on like a few points, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, the Republican Party just disappeared. Weird.
Yep.
But they don't do that because they're stupid. So that's why Forward Party, hashtag Forward Party 2024.
If only.
If only. But yeah, I don't
In
think
the,
we need to talk about
in the
Flash
meantime, I think I'm fully supporting Marianne Williamson in the Democratic primary.
Yeah.
Like, it's just the objectively best option.
I wish Bernie was younger.
Me too.
We all do. All of us progressives, we wish Bernie was younger. No way.
Yeah.
If he wasn't 70, a million years old, he'd be a good candidate for a long time, I think. But, you know, we already got one super old guy, and we don't want that. So, Medicare for all, and
too many super old guys.
so many super old guys.
Um,
The most
So, yeah,
accurate description of the American government is gerontocracy.
yeah, that's true.
I
we could talk
am
about
in
the fact-
America now.
What's
Oh
that?
yeah, did you hear about that, Jaybird? Sydney moved to the America.
Yeah,
United
I'm in the
States.
United States of America.
I
I'm in the
so
outside.
I this is almost gonna sound creepy.
Yeah.
The only way I knew, or like I didn't like hear about that, I just saw your location on
On
Snapchat,
Snap. Yeah.
and I was like, okay, like maybe she's just visiting. I didn't realize you had moved. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Are you-
no,
are you happy with it?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I have a cat now. I got a kitten. Devin's mom took in a bunch
saw
of
the
these
snap.
kittens, and she gave me one.
Yeah.
His name is Gooby Snooper, and I love him very much. And he's a little shit, but not to me.
Make it a lot
Talking about
easier
the-
to make it a lot easier to arrange a hangout for all of us.
Yes, yes, indeed. I'm also
Like-
going to start working on dual citizenship, but I think I need to contact like some sort of fancy lawyer. I don't know. I can't find it on the internet. My mom has her side done. I just need to do mine.
There you go.
And there's Olive Garden, and I love soup, and Olive Garden gives me unlimited soup.
Olive Garden is
There's no Olive Garden in
actually
Canada.
actually just like overhyped fast food, to be honest.
but
Nowadays, you
do
should
you
have seen old
understand
Olive Garden.
And how much I like soup. Gooby, can I help you? Gooby, ow, ow,
But you
ow,
don't
ow.
know what you're missing. You know what we could talk about tonight, Alex, is the fact that your opponent on Hearthstone's name is Huge Cock Talk, even though they're playing Hearthstone. We could talk about that as a natural phenomenon.
Oh, Essie
People
wants to
still play
play me
Hearthstone.
live on stream? Oh, that
Hearthstone.
seems like a bad decision for her.
Oh my
Gooby
god.
Snooper. I love you, Gooby.
Does
Yeah, I
anybody-
went on my first alone walk today. I was
Liam-
only gone maybe like 12 minutes, and I was almost kidnapped, and a retard was screaming at me.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that's not good.
that doesn't like, I don't know what happened, man. He just
Start
drives
fucking-
up to me, and he's like trying to talk to me, and I was like, and I kept walking, and then he goes into a driveway and turns around, and I'm like at this point jogging. I'm like, no, I need to get out of here. Like I'm scared. And he comes back to me and is trying to talk to me. He's like, oh, do you need a ride? Let me take you somewhere. I can take you anywhere you want. And I was like, no, I'm okay. I just want to go home. And he just kept egging me on about it, and he kept like getting closer and closer, and I was like, no,
That's
No.
that's
no.
that's
God
pretty
bless
spicy.
America.
Yeah, I love that was my first experience going out alone.
Yeah. Yep, that's
Liam.
yep.
Liam,
What the hell?
I just played Lab Constructor. It's forged magnetic. At the end of your turn, summon a copy of this, and I forged it into my legendary Mimiron that says every time I play a mech, I get a random one of his gadgets. And I also have this guy out that says whenever I magnetize a minion, I give it +1/+1. So he turned into a 7/9 and made a copy of himself. This is ridiculous right now.
For the sake of your opponent, I hope they win.
They're not going to. There's no coming back right now. I am on turn 5. I have 2 7/8s on board. Like, what the fuck?
Can we talk about the fact that the Death Knight hero power is broken as fuck?
The summoning a ghoul that, like, charges and, yeah. And grants
Do
them a
they-
corpse every time?
Oh, it dies at the end of its turn, though. That's not...
No, that's to fund their corpses. That's
Oh, sure.
super good
Well,
for them.
I was taking it in a vacuum. I'm sure it's
Look at
probably
that.
broken
Turn
otherwise,
5, surrender. Let's go. Alright.
but we love that. Love that for you.
Alright, time
But,
to play.
I guess to wrap up any political conversations tonight, I mean, we could probably save a lot of these topics for another night too. I think we got a good.
So here's something you could help me
runtime
with.
over the rest of them. Yeah, hit me with it.
What should be my next like solo like changed my mind episode? Like, what's a topic that I used to have a different like super conservative opinion on and changed my mind that you think I should share with the world?
Your last one was capitalism, right?
Yeah. So I've done abortion and capitalism.
Let me think about that for a second, because there's lots of good ones that I think I would be really interested in hearing, like your change my mind story on. Here's one thing, I don't know if you've changed your mind on this, or if this is something you've always believed, but giving runtime to bad opinions. Is that something like you've changed your mind on, or have any thoughts about that would like run an entire stream?
I'm going to take a poop. I'll be back.
I think we could like broaden it more to like my like how my free speech opinions have changed over time.
There we go. Yeah.
Because I think to some degree that's really what we care about is like what are the acceptable limits on free speech, if any exist.
Yeah, should you be able to say fire on...
I think that might be its own like episode and not a change my mind though, because my mind has barely changed on that one.
Well, did you like what's your Really?
Yeah.
You've like always believed that way, even when you were like hyper religious?
Yeah, I've always been like super like I actually think in terms of like what I think are acceptable, first of all, I think everyone has the right to do it, right? Like, so I don't have a problem with Destiny. Like, I would never use state force to make any kind of change. However, in terms of who you talk to and what you do, I've always kind of had that opinion of you should be careful, like, who you give airtime to in your life. I've always thought that way.
Right, I think we should treat them with moral and social, well, not moral, but social consequences. Kind of like Kanye going like off the absolute rails about like Jewish people, like that should be treated with social consequences. I don't think the guy deserves to be put in jail for it.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that take.
So I don't,
but,
I don't think my opinion's
I don't
changed
think
on that.
changed my mind. I mean, you could do relationships, but I feel like you've done so many mega episodes on that like, I guess if you wanted to bring it back, since you're kind of reviving APT in a lot of ways, like that might be a good idea. But it seems like you've probably changed your opinion on like how a relationship ought to be constructed, and that's probably valuable to people.
Yeah, I will tell you, I know that the next episode that I'm going to do on relationships is here's a APT teaser right now. It's going to specifically focus on... This is so fucking irritating right now that this thing has Divine Shield. I think this is the best.
That's why Hearthstone's bad game. Bad game design.
Best solve right here is just get a secret on board, I think.
Cat trick is the best.
And a bait and switch.
All my homies love cat trick.
So my next episode on relationships is going to be why I think that at some point, even as he said, suck it. At some point, all relationships became very transactional, right? And
yes.
In other words, we think that the best thing to do is to reserve giving out love and be worried about, are you going to give too much love away and not get anything in return? And I don't think that that's natural to us. I think that's like a product of like very bad relationship incentives. Oh, Essie. Oh, right into the explosive trap. What a bad day.
Epic fail. Interesting. I wonder if we disagree on that.
Yeah, I'm that's like probably the most core part of my idea that I haven't like talked about live as much. Like, I've alluded to it, but I haven't, like, dedicated, like, my full argument there. And I think I ought to.
Wait, Essie, were you the comment you put in the YouTube chat earlier? Were you referring to the corpse, the doing things to corpses that we would see as wrong?
Yeah, your comment was something about... What was her comment?
I feel like it would be morally wrong because it's dishonoring them.
Oh, yeah, because it's dishonoring them is what she said.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, dude.
I think I'm probably on board. The only I think you can do whatever to a corpse so long as nobody cares about it, but if somebody cares about it, then yeah, that's probably a problem.
Then it's probably wrong. And the only reason why at that point you should do it is if you absolutely need to for some other benefit that can be parsed out.
What if you're an incel?
I can't even with that, dude.
Yeah, we don't gotta dive into that one. I don't want to go. I don't want to go down that path, and I'm the one who just brought it up.
Man, this is going bad for Essie so fast.
Is she like good at Hearthstone?
She's very new, and I helped build her deck for her. Like, we tried to build a pretty budget like mech deck.
I see.
She's
better
almost
pray I
certainly...
never return to Hearthstone.
Whatever, bro.
Dude, I'd smoke you. I'd smoke the shit out of you, dude.
So false.
But yeah, I don't know. So you're saying that like relationships should not be transactional?
Correct.
That regardless of like what there is to gain in terms of flourishing and suffering from a what if all there was to gain from a relationship was suffering?
Well, so that's different. So I have one condition on my relationship model, and that condition is I think that you should discontinue any relationship in your life where someone repeatedly means you harm and demonstrates that they mean you harm.
So Karina in my life.
Correct. I think that
I
that's
thought you
bad
already
for you.
cut that out.
Oh yeah, you haven't been caught up on the latest.
I love how Sydney was like gone for a second, then just comes back with the full thunder. Like,
Oh.
I'm glad. I'm glad. Yeah, you've missed out on quite a bit there. I don't want this to be recorded. I don't want this to be immortalized on YouTube though. So we'll
Okay.
save that one for later. I don't want to make Alex's job harder of having to go back and splice the stream or something.
That's hilarious. I'm sorry. It's not, but it is.
No,
but
I
yeah,
laugh
like-
at my own suffering sometimes. It's okay.
in general, oh, look at that. Attacking into it, taking 7 to the face. Oh, Essie. Oh, it's so painful. Oh. I hate you, she says. So, I like the whole thing with like my relationship model is I think that the reason why I put this on Facebook the other day. Actually, let me pull up how I said it on Facebook because I think this will be a nice way to end the stream. And kind of like preview a future episode because I for sure am going to do this episode on transactional love.
Perfect. And then I can tell Sydney all the tea that she missed while she was gone.
Yeah.
You know what else we should talk about whenever we have another joint stream again?
What's that?
Why Rick and Morty is genius, dude.
They really do
Oh
be
my
genius.
God.
Bye,
Why,
Essie.
why in order to watch Rick and Morty to the fullest potential, you must have the massive brain of, like, Albert Einstein quadrupled into 1,000,000, dude. That's the
Okay.
only way.
All right, so this is what I wrote and how I wrote it. You ready for this one?
Wait, are you gonna pull it up on stream, or are you just pulling it up on your phone?
No, because I don't want to like parse out like other people on Facebook and try to like limit that shit.
Oh, good call, good call.
Socially enforced monogamy norms capitalize love. It creates a false sense of scarcity around love, so rather than give it freely, we believe our love must be earned.
I'd be giving my love away for free.
What's that?
I'd be giving all my love away for free every time.
True.
Yeah, but that is kind of how like people talk about it
Yeah.
in the discourse, right?
Yeah.
Like they say like, listen, if I do all this and then it goes bad in the end, like I've lost so much, so I've got to be super careful about like, you know, not giving my heart away. And like there's this whole like lingo around that. And I think that
Yeah.
comes from this like transactional sense of love. Transactional love is what turns relationships toxic in the long term. Because we start to go, I've done this for them, I've done that for them, I've done this for them, and what am I getting out of it, right? And rather than...
I hate when people do that.
Because socially enforced monogamy exists, we don't think, hey, maybe you guys just need to like take a couple steps back down the ladder, expand your social circles, and get some good things in your life from not just each other.
Yeah.
And that's like how my whole model works, is I think that we need more relationships, not less. We need stronger relationships. And I don't mean stronger in terms of people that we obsess over, spend more time with. I mean stronger in terms of maybe that's not good. Maybe we're too close. Like we need to back off and like actually have some independence in our lives and some autonomy and not rely on each other for fucking everything. Right?
Yeah.
So
that's exactly one of the things that went wrong in my last relationship is we were so dependent on each other and it became so toxic.
Yeah. So that's kind of, I think that sums it up a little bit better.
Oh, look at Picasso.
So that's going to be my next episode on the relationship series, is going to be, transactional love is going to be the whole topic. And I want to do that one fair justice, and it's probably going to be a PowerPoint because I have a lot of things that I've been talking about, and just a number of conversations that I've had lately about that. One changed
Hell
my
yeah.
mind. One changed my mind potential that I thought might be interesting to people, and you can tell me if you think so. One thing for sure that I used to think growing up was I was actually a lot more like pro-war.
Whoa. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
that changed my mind. Pacifism. That's what I want. That's what I
Yeah.
want to see.
Okay. Like I didn't realize that would be so popular instantly. Okay. All right.
Yes.
So how did I change my mind about violence and its necessity?
Yes.
Okay.
And
Sick.
also, before we end the stream, I do need to say, Micah, I did not have sexual relations with that corpse.
I just heard her laugh from the outside room.
I saw the chat in the Twitch chat. She said, "Oh, Liam, I have questions. Let me be very clear. I did not have sexual relations with that corpse.
That corpse.
Unless your mom counts it as a corpse." She. Okay, I'm done now.
Oh my god. All right, here comes the stream beats. Here comes the end stream screen.
Oh hell yeah! The brick wall.
Hold on, we need a better song. Wait, why is Shuffle not on? Leaving a Trail. This is the one.
Can you play Closing Time?
No. You know I can't play that.
Semisonic gonna claim the stream.
This is an ending song right here. Hype. Maximum hype right now.
Hype for the Change My Mind Pacifism stream. Everybody put your hypes in the chat.
Oh. Alright, thanks for coming, everybody. It's been a super fun episode. Thanks, Liam. Thanks, everybody. Follow all my shit. Come join me in Discord. You can have these conversations with me, and we can talk about corpse fucking or whatever that